I am not well mentally. I'm not well because I was born and raised in a cult. Before I was born, my parents were being trained to be circuit overseers, where my father was being trained to being circuit overseer, my mother was being trained to be his wife. And as a result, they toured the whole city with the circuit overseers. They went all around the city for like a year or two, knowing everybody. They finished their training, and when they were done, they just got the assignment days after they realized that they were pregnant with me. So they couldn't become circuit overseers. They couldn't go around helping people because of me. My mom told me that when I was around 7 or 8. And when I told her how I regretted being born because that meant that they didn't have, that they couldn't serve Jehovah anymore, she told me, no, it's okay. Jehovah does everything for a reason. That just means that you're probably going to be a really good Jehovah's Witness. You're going to be really helpful in the organization. That's when the anxiety started, I think. Ever since I was a kid, I just had these expectations thrown on me that I was going to be a publisher, or that I had to baptize, that I have to get all of these privileges. And I believed in that because I truly believed in the organization. But as a kid with undiagnosed ADHD, sitting through the meetings was a nightmare. Sitting through the meetings was hell. If you tell a kid with ADHD that they have to sit through and pay attention for 2 hours to the most boring people in the world, otherwise, he's not going to survive through Armageddon. Well, that's a lot of pressure, especially if the kid believes it, and I definitely believed it. And as a Jehovah's Witness, you are never done. I can't remember a single time when I was just allowed to chill, allowed to just watch TV, not just because I've had a tough day or whatever. My parents would always ask me, Did you do your homework? Yeah, okay. Well, did you prepare for the meeting? And if I had, well, did you prepare for the other meeting with everything? Did you read the weekly Bible reading? Did you have you prepared with the other speeches? Because you know how the brothers sometimes they need help. And so I prepared with all of the speeches because I just liked helping, just in case that was needed. So that was also something I did, and as a result, I was not allowed to just sit back and relax. Leisure was demonized around the house. And I didn't have any friends because I didn't know how to make friends. When you are a Jehovah's Witness, you realize that you're not going to make a lot of friends by talking about religion. But when you're a Jehovah's Witness, as indoctrinated as I am, you just can't help to think about religion and to just talk about it eventually. So as a result, I was ostracized. I couldn't connect with kids my age. I couldn't connect with anybody really. So I didn't make friends at school. Ever. And I really needed friends because even though my father was an ex-Bethelite, almost circuit overseer, and was the one of the best known elders in the city, he was a psychopath behind closed doors. He abused us mentally and emotionally quite regularly, and it only became worse when I was 11 and my mother got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And we all thought that she was gonna die very soon. And what we quickly realized is that her disease was directly proportional with her stress levels, which is not really good news when you're a Jehovah's Witness. And my father once took me and my siblings in the car and told us that my mom was like a pencil. And every time we disobeyed, every time we did anything wrong, we did anything to stress her, it was like we were sharpening that pencil. Until one day, we were gonna run out of pencil because my mom was sick. I was 11. My sister was 9. My brother was 6 or 7. That's one of his very first memories. That's who my father was to us. And we were children. He was obviously worse with my mother, abusing her in ways that just I can't really explain in this video because it's just too horrible and not my story to tell. That was the environment at home. And without friends, once we moved to a new city, I felt extremely alone. I was a teenager and I didn't know how to make friends. I wanted to make friends, but at the same time, I knew that I could never be friends with them because they would never truly accept me. And I would never be able to fully be friends with them because they were not Jehovah's Witnesses. So I did the most childish thing that I could do, and I just kind of convinced myself that I didn't want to be their friend anyway. Plus, they were very different. They had experiences that I really wanted to have, but couldn't. They had romantic experiences. They had sexual experiences. They had homosexual experiences. Not that I wanted to have that last one. That last one I thought was disgusting. I was extremely homophobic. So I wasn't really fully liked in school, which only reinforced this idea that I was persecuted because I was right, basically. By then, I already had these terrible ideas that scared me to death. These impulses of wanting to stab myself, sometimes others, do things like that. And it really scared me because I didn't really want to do it, but I felt the impulse of doing it. And it just came in waves. And sometimes I remember I just had those impulses late at night, and I would cry at night asking for Jehovah to help me. And when help didn't come, I would just assume that it was because I had been watching cartoons that I shouldn't have been watching, or because I had been masturbating, or because of whatever reason, and that would just make things harder. So I started looking for help in what I knew was the best source for help, Jehovah's channel. And everything I found was just about me needing to grab onto the thoughts and identify them and remove them from my head, which is extremely terrible advice for OCD, which is what I was experiencing. Not that I would know for, over a decade. When I was 18, my mom woke me up one day, and she was crying. My father had been insulting her, had been saying that he didn't like her anymore. By this point, my father was completely uncontrollable. He made our lives the worst. He followed us around. He followed us around the city. He showed up in the weirdest places at the weirdest times. He was doing really odd things. I remember she got a phone call from my father, and my father was telling her a whole bunch of insults that no Jehovah's Witness should ever say, and no person should ever say to their spouse, that's for sure. Saying how he was gonna go to fuck a prostitute, and how he didn't care about anything because he just wanted to separate, and he was sick of her, and blah blah blah. And then he hung up. My mother was crying. I was crying. I was shaking. After an hour of just kind of like trying to figure out what to do when your father goes haywire, he came to the house. And he looked completely unhinged. He went up to where my mother was and where I was, and just kind of saw me, and I stood in between him and my mother. He told me to move. I refused. He did it again. I refused again, and he was way bigger than me. I'm not a very big person, as you can see, and I was like 30 pounds lighter back then, if you can believe it. So it wasn't very hard for him to move me out of the way and then shake me against the wall several times and throw me out of the bedroom so he could start beating and screaming to my mom. And I remember I was extremely afraid. I grabbed a glass that was nearby, and I broke it because I knew that I may need to defend myself. And I hid it. I hid it next to, in case I fell in that area, because I knew that I knew that I could die. And then I just grabbed a big piece of iron, and I was just calling my father and telling him to get out, and just waiting. When he finally came out, he saw me and he dared me to hit him. And I refused. I just told him to leave us alone. And he dared me again. He dared me several times, and I refused. He screamed that he was leaving the house. And then he left. I didn't know when I broke the glass, I actually cut my hand a little bit. So I must have looked extremely ridiculous, just a 18-year-old teenager branding this piece of iron in his boxers while bleeding from one hand. we thought that we would never see him again, and he said that we would never see him again. We went to an elder to tell him what happened and tell him everything, and I kind of just broke down because I couldn't defend my mom. And he just made me feel bad because I was thinking about violence. When we came back to the house late at night that day after we had changed the locks and kind of gotten used to the idea that my father wasn't going to be around, my father was watching TV in his room like nothing had happened. The elder was with us. And I remember calling for him because I couldn't believe that he would be there. Surely we must have left the TV on. Surely it wasn't him, but it was. He came out. He was like, "Hey, what's up?" "Oh, brother. Oh, I didn't know you were coming." I had never been that afraid in my whole life, I think. We realized that we couldn't stay. So I gathered like the little money that I had and bought all of us bus tickets for my hometown, just so we could get away from him. And when we arrived to my hometown, he just went more haywire. Threw out most of our stuff, changed houses, and bought himself the sympathy of the congregation because the whole congregation thought that my mom was cheating on him because somehow he convinced them of that. And that because she was cheating on him, we had left, all of us, to a different city. That is literally what they believed. I talked to one of them later. I talked to one of them. I was 18 and I was just trying to put food on the table because I had put us all in this situation when we didn't really have money. That's when I got the closest to the organization because the congregation helped us. They gave us food when we didn't have food. That was back in 2008, 2009. So finding a job was extremely hard. I was looking for a job for 6 months. But after a while, and with the help of Jehovah, we went back to our city and we were finally able to move on with our lives without my father. Sure, I had undiagnosed OCD, undiagnosed ADHD, and I was still indoctrinated, but hey, I wasn't with my father anymore, and that was everything that I cared about. That was good. We had made it. We weren't with him anymore. And sure, throughout my 20s, there were so many times where I wanted to be sexually active with somebody, or I just wanted to be romantic with somebody, but I knew that I couldn't because only a few years after we came back, my sister got disfellowshipped. And we kind of all just stopped going to the meetings for the very first time. I was around 22, 23. And I started sort of dating, but I didn't know anything. I had never gone on dates, and I didn't want to be sexually active with somebody because I already felt guilty just because I wanted to kiss them, and they weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. Ever since I realized that I wanted to be sexual with somebody, which was pretty early on, I pretty early on discovered that I was definitely straight, and I definitely like women, and I definitely wanted to be with women. But I had to repress all of that with meetings telling me all of the issues about anal sex and oral sex and all of that stuff, making it almost impossible for me not to think about that on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. I obviously felt extremely guilty when I masturbated, and I felt extremely guilty when I went out dating, because I kind of knew that I couldn't give them anything, that if things went well, they could only go so far. I remember just going on a few awkward dates and just treating people in a way not bad, not I wasn't misbehaving with them, but I was inherently misogynist in my view towards them. Besides being homophobic, and besides being hating every other religion, I also was that. Bo Burnham has this song called Problematic that I think of a lot, because I do feel like I'm constantly haunted by all of these tiny little shitty things that I did. None of them against the law, just really awful and shitty things that I did. Just little homophobic comments that I made here, or little misogynist comment that I made there, and it just keeps me up at night because I thought that those were right at the moment. But now that I look back on them, I realize how inappropriate I was, and I can't just call those people and apologize to them, because what am I gonna say? Hey, what's up? Hey, I'm Caleb. I don't know if you remember me, but we used to work together for like a couple of months, and then I realized that you were gay, and then I made a couple of homophobic jokes, and that weren't really bad. But after that, I feel like we could have become like close co-workers, and we just became co-workers. Like, what am I gonna do that? No, of course not. It's not enough to apologize for years later. They probably don't remember it. Most of them don't remember this, and don't probably remember me, if I'm honest. I'm extremely forgettable. So at best, I'm just gonna just remind them of a time that I was shitty to them, just so I could apologize to them, so I could feel better. No, surely that is not fair. That is not fair to them, because it's not that important to them. But the fact that there are just so many, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with them. I've regretted many things since I started waking up 2 years ago. It was hard for me, because even though I was already with my never Jehovah's Witness partner, and I am extremely happy with her, and we have and we had this perfect life, I always thought that there was a chance that we would be together forever. So when I started waking up, sure, it was great to realize that a lot of things that I thought I couldn't do, I could do now. I could smoke. I could do whatever I wanted, and that was liberating in a way. But at the same time, I lost the framework that I use to see the world through, and had to build it up again from the start. And I didn't want to deal with the fact that if all of my beliefs were wrong, sure, that meant that I could smoke up. That meant that I could, do whatever I wanted, pretty much, as long as I didn't hurt anybody. That meant that I never had to go to the meetings again. I never had to worry about preaching, or about doing 10 hours a month, or about even making sure that my life was worth it to Jehovah. But that also meant that I was gonna die one day, forever. And I didn't want to think about that too much. I kind of just pushed it to the back of my head. I had good training for that. I was a Jehovah's Witness. But it became pretty much unavoidable when a year later, or, last year, Seuss died. Seuss was our kitten. It's been a year, and I'm not sure that I'll be able to put up an image of him. I don't think I will. It still hurts too much. But that's when it became unavoidable. Because one of us had died already. And I realized that we can all just die like he died unexpectedly. He was just 3 years old, and he just got sick one day, and it turned out he had leukemia. He wasn't going to get better, and I had to put him down. And my wife, she couldn't say goodbye because she was visiting her parents. So when he died, I kind of realized that I was also going to die one day, forever. One day, I am going to die. I'm not going to live forever. There's no chance that the paradise is going to save me. I'm just gonna die, and that's it. That's it. Just like Seuss. And that is also going to happen to everyone I love. Everybody I love is also going to die one day. And if I'm lucky, it'll happen to me first. Because then I won't have to experience the world without them. And that scares me. I was with my psychiatrist the other day, and I told him, how come people don't have mental breakdowns about how they're going to die one day regularly? How come that doesn't happen, say, on a weekly basis? How come it's not really acceptable to tell your boss, hey, sorry I'm late. I was just thinking about how I'm gonna die one day and how everything's meaningless. And your boss would go like, "Oh yeah, no, of course I arrived late because of the same thing." How come how come not only does that not happen on a weekly basis, but how come I've never seen that? And I asked him, I honestly asked him, how do you do it? How do you do it? How how how, how do you exist like that? Because I don't know how to exist like that. I never knew how to exist like that. I'm not. I've been looking for help in a lot of places. I go to a psychiatrist. I take medication, of course. But I also tried psilocybin to good effect. I don't recommend it. I only tried it after checking with my doctor. So I check with your doctor. But to me, it kind of helped me solve one of the main issues that I had after leaving the religion, because I don't know what the purpose of life is. If we're gonna die, if we're just gonna stop existing very soon, then what's the point of it? I struggle with nihilism, with finding the meaning of it. Because I'm not gonna buy what an ancient text says. I'm just gonna buy what the science says, and the science says that this is it. And when I was on that very mild trip, I kind of found an answer to that has helped me somewhat. I kind of realized that asking what the meaning of life is a flawed question in itself, because it implies that it has a meaning. And we don't know that it does. That's just kind of this made up thing that we put there. We don't care. The universe doesn't care about us. The world doesn't care about us. We're going to die one day. Why do we have to also worry about finding a point to this all? And that was weirdly liberating in a way. I kind of found a way to find some sort of closure with nihilism, because if nothing has a meaning, if nothing truly has a meaning, then when I feel sad about not knowing what to do with my life, about me dying one day, about all of that stuff, that is equally meaningless, unless I want to give it another meaning. And if I want to do that, weirdly enough, I'm allowed to. I'm allowed to interpret it however I want, because if nothing really matters, if the universe doesn't care about it, then surely the universe doesn't care that I interpret it to mean something nicer. I don't really like being outside of my house for that long. I still don't know why. I'm working on it. I was with my therapist the other day, and I was telling him how I am a very different person now than I was a year ago, than I was 2 years ago, than I was when I was a Jehovah's Witness. I am very, very, very different. I wouldn't recognize myself. Now, my beliefs are different. My outlook on life is different. My clothes are different. I look different. I talk about different things. I care about different things. I am inherently a different person. And he kind of threw me a curveball and asked me which one was better. now or before. And listen, I know that I am depressed. I know that I'll be better. I know. So I was trying to figure out an answer. And I realized that I was finding it hard to determine what was better. And I told him, well, now I am a more caring person. I appreciate life more. I am a more accepting person. I am a more moral person. I don't judge people anymore. I am free to do whatever I want, pretty much. But before, when I didn't know any of that, when I wasn't any of that, I felt happier.